Turn the bass up.
I got the profit up. I always double up. It ain't nothing, bro. It ain't nothing, bro.
Talk about being handed the keys to the kingdom with a Belton fan base and dropping the ball. We are going over the 2023 Five Nights at Freddy's. This was a horror film that was based on the video game franchise, and personally, I've never played the game, so I kind of went into this ignorant to the whole game. This was created by Scott Cawthon and directed by Emma Tabai. It stars Josh Hutcherson as Mike Schmidt, and the whole plot of Five Nights at Freddy's is Mike is a character that is very haunted by his own past. He saw his brother kidnapped when he was a child, and it to this day haunts him in his sleep. It essentially dissolved his parents, and they passed away, so he's left with trying to raise his sister, Abby. Now there's a confrontation with him and his aunt. Aunt's trying to get custody of Abby, but Mike knows that she's not the right person for the job, so he has a friend named Max who babysits her on the daily as he tries to work, but because of his past, his trauma gets in the way of his work, and it gives him a really bad work history to the point where he's fired and goes to a career counselor. And this part of the movie was exciting for me to see Matthew Lillard back in a horror world. And he grills into Mike. Like, this is, for me, probably the best part of the film, the mise-en-scène, the very bleakness of this career counselor's office. You can just see the dire straits of what Mike's trying to do to stay afloat to take care of his sister. Now, Matthew introduces himself as Steve Raglan, the career counselor, and says, I have a job for you. You have a really bad track record, but I finally have a job. It sucks, but it pays, and it was nights. And he says, I can't do nights, and walks out. But he realizes the situation with his aunt is getting more and more dire, so he takes the job. And this is where we see Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria. And his job is night security, try to keep the vagrants out, keep the places clean. But Mike decides instead to use this time to pop sleeping pills and re-enter his mind. We come to find out that the reason he's having his dreams of his brother so frequently is he's trying to unlock certain parts that he may have forgotten as a kid. And he read that when you revisit your dreams, they become more lucid and you can discover details. So he's trying to find the man that took his brother when he was a kid, just so he can have some sort of resolution and answers to what happened in his life. And this is where we're introduced to Vanessa, played by Elizabeth Lale. And she's a police officer who knows, I guess Freddy's is on her police beat, and she knows this place a little too intimate, and it makes Mike a little uncomfortable with how well she knows the place. She even says, do you want to meet them? He's like, meet who? And so she clicks on all the animatronics, and this is where we see Freddy and all the characters come to life and playing that very much 80s reminiscent music. Now, I don't want to give the whole plot away. I want y'all to go watch this movie because I know there's going to be fans who want to see it. I read up and I've played maybe 20 minutes of the first Five Nights at Freddy's, and it didn't hold me. But I could see where the creators were trying to push like all these different pieces together. Now, for me, the best part of the movie is seeing Matthew Lillard back in this, which makes me kind of hope that moving down the road, if they make another Scream film, I'd love to see Stu come back, but that's for another date. Now, I think another reason why this movie irked me so much is it leans more into Mike and his relationship with his sister and what's going on there, and detracts from the horror that made Five Nights at Freddy's so interesting to begin with. And here, this is where I have to say that I think they waited too long to make this movie, because if you go back, and I've done reviews on these, I'll leave cards throughout this review. Willy's Wonderland with Nicolas Cage, which I think was supposed to be like a test run to see if people would kind of go to the idea of murdering animatronics. And that movie kicked ass. And of course, it's Nick Cage, so there's really no comparison there. And the other one that was just as equally awesome, that kind of leaned into the nostalgia of the 70s and the 80s, was the Banana Splits movie. When I bought that, I thought it was going to be absolutely stupid. Now, don't get me wrong, it's stupid, but in a good way. The kills are creative, both in the same with Willy's Wonderland. Absolutely love those movies, and I'd go back and watch those as many times as I possibly could. Five Nights at Freddy's, we finally see the animatronics come to life, And they look great, don't get me wrong. The CGI and the use of practicalness is really awesome. But all the kills, it goes to like that PG-13 thing where it's all off scene, what do you call it, off camera. So it's just like, oh, big whoop-de-doo. I hate when they do that. And that's why a lot of those movies from like the 2000s where they started to make them more PG-13, they lose that 70s and 80s like slasher grindhouse feel where you see something and it makes you uncomfortable. And that's what makes all those horror films such an allure. And I think why Willy's Wonderland worked so well, too, is there wasn't a whole lot of answers. Five Nights at Freddy's gives you too much. Like, everything's wrapped up in a neat little bow at the end of the film. But they do leave it as a cliffhanger, which I wish they wouldn't have, because sometimes when you're starting a movie franchise, you want to see how the fans are going to react to it, and a lot of people did not react well to this film. Now, there's a lot of good ideas, don't get me wrong, and I can see where the creators were trying to do a love letter to the fans, but again, in the writing process, going too much more into the humans and their lives detracted from this movie. That's why Willy's Wonderland worked so well, because Nicolas Cage is in there, you're locked down, and you only get maybe a couple of things outside in the real world, but everything revolves in that film, so you get that claustrophobic horror film that is Five Nights at Freddy's. So let me know what y'all think. Did you enjoy it? Are you hoping that they make a sequel? If they do, I hope that they lean more into the horror element and less on the outside human emotion. Now, don't get me wrong. If that would have been a movie in and of itself, that would have been great. But trying to merge the two was way too much, especially with the end. I felt like there was just too deus ex machina, or just too convenient for some of the answers that Mike comes when he's faced with the ultimate horror that is supposed to be the leader of Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria. So if you guys have enjoyed the movie, please go check it out. It's worth a watch at least, especially for all the work that the creators did behind the scenes, you know, all the scene set dressers, the animatronics, the CGIers. It's definitely at least go to support that. And if you've enjoyed this review, I really would appreciate if you take a moment to hit like, share, and subscribe. Helps the After Dark channel more than you could possibly know. And if you don't mind hitting that fancy little Freddy bell next to subscribe, that way as I continue to upload content, you guys get notified. Come to the channel. I love talking with you and hearing your thoughts and feedback down in the comments below or the socials, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description. So with all that said, hope you all continue to have an absolutely amazing day watching, and happy viewing, everyone.